Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum everyone. First of all, happy Ramadan. I wish you a blessed Ramadan and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us serve Him and accept our service in this holy month, inshallah. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the end of Surat Yousef alayhi salam, indeed these stories have lessons for those men of understanding. And those are the stories of the prophets and the stories that Allah relates in the Quran. The story we're looking at today is one of the stories of Bani Isreal. It's narrated towards the end of the second juz of the Quran in Surat Albaqara. And the story goes about a group of Bani Isreal that faced several defeats, and they had no king amongst them anymore, and they lost the wooden box, the tabut that had the remainders of the tablets of Musa alayhi salam. So this group went to a prophet that was sent to them at that time, and they asked him to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send them to appoint a king from amongst them so that they can defeat their enemy and regain their status. And the prophet, knowing their nature, he asked them to confirm their intention, if they will refrain from fighting once it has been decreed upon them. And they indicated that they would definitely not do that, and how can they not fight after their children and homes were taken away from them. So the story goes on that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala appointed Talut. The Prophet informs them that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala appointed Talut from amongst them to be king. And Talut at the time was just a normal soldier, and he wasn't from the lineage of kings they were used to. So those people, they objected to that Prophet, and they said, how can Talut be our king and he has no wealth and he's poorer than the rest of us? So the Prophet replied that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is more knowledgeable of Talut than all of you, and he has given him abundance in knowledge and power and strength to be worthy of this kingship that he appointed him for, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has more knowledge and has the capability to give his kingship to whoever he wishes. So the story goes on that the people who stuck to the promise and continued to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala marched with Talut towards a river, in which Talut informed them that this river was a test for them, and that whoever will freely drink from that river will fail the test and will not accompany him anymore, and whoever only takes a sip in the hollow of their hand will pass that test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and will continue to accompany Talut the king through this journey towards fighting the enemy. So as the Mufassirin say, only about 310 from 80,000 initial followers passed that test and actually continued accompanying Talut. So a few of these believers that passed the test were a little bit hesitant, and they said, we have no power or strength to defeat Jalut and his soldiers now that we are less in number. And then a smaller group from among this group that passed the test, they actually strengthened the others, and they reminded them of their prophet, reminded them of the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah grants His victory to whom He wills, and that it's not dependent upon their number or how strong they are. And then they continued to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant them that victory. They asked Him to give them the patience and the steadfastness, and then grant them victory upon their enemies. And then they did defeat their enemy, and Allah's promise was delivered. And Dawood, which was, Mufassirin say that he was a boy of approximately 16 years old at that time, killed the king Jalut and was given kingship later and prophethood. Reflecting upon the story, we can see that victory was given after a lot of patience and perseverance, and after showing sincerity towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that the victory was given not based on materialistic reasons like number of army or how strong they are, but it was given based on the connection between the individuals and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and based upon the connection between the group as a whole and individual and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Applying that in our lives as travelers on the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we can learn, or we should be ready for trials and tests, and we should know that the higher our iman is, the stronger and the more severe these tests and trials would be. And we should understand that these trials are for our benefit, and they're meant to strengthen our iman and to filter from amongst us those who are stronger and firmer in their belief and that deserve to continue on this holy path of serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Another way we can apply these reflections to our lives is the importance of serving Allah in groups, or marching towards on the path of Allah ta'ala in groups, because we all know that sometimes we become hesitant, sometimes our iman becomes lower for one reason or another. But being in a group, there's always a chance that we're exposing ourselves to other individuals who can actually take our hand at those moments and lift our spirit and our iman and help us return back stronger to the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله العظيم لي ولكم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت وأستغفرك وأتوب إليك.